Welcome to the Navarthri presentation. The theme for this year's Navarthri is Vahana Vaibhavam, or a celebration of all the God's vehicles. In this particular year, we have chosen to take artifacts from around us and represent them as the vehicles of gods. And for each of these presentations, we have a small associated story. Some of this credit is due to Sri Dushyant, who had recently come to Seattle and was giving us a lecture series on Vishnu and Garuda, which inspired us. So let us start from all the way from the top. At the top is Durga Devi or Mahishasura Mardini. She is represented there with sitting on the lion with 18 arms. Each of these arms has a special weapon that has been gifted to her by each of these gods. Coming down to the first step, we have the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. Starting at the left, we have Brahma and Saraswati who are sitting on a swan. The swan is supposed to represent a higher degree of purity in Hindu mythology. Specifically, when given a mixture of milk and water, the swan can separate the milk from the water. It is supposed to represent the fact that the swan can separate the good from the evil, or more deeply, that which is permanent from that which is temporary. Moving to the right, we have Vishnu. Now, as you all know, Vishnu's Vahanam is Garuda. There is an interesting story here. When Vishnu and Garuda met in the heavens, they both fell in love with each other, and they both granted a boon to each other. So Garuda started off by saying, "I would like to be above you." So as a consequence, Vishnu asked him to go sit on his flat staff, and hence Garuda is also always supposed to be above Vishnu. Then when Garuda asked Mahavishnu to choose a boon, Vishnu asked for Garuda to be his Vahanam, and hence Garuda is supposed to be below Vishnu as well. Symbolically, when you are a pure-hearted devotee of the Lord, you are both above and below Vishnu. Now, in terms of how this was prepared, as you can see in the back, the flagstaff has been prepared from a Lego set of blocks with a picture of Garuda sitting stuck there. On the bottom is another Garuda, which in reality was a dove, which has been painted to look like Garuda here. Now, Lakshmi's Vahanam is supposed to be the owl, which is represented there in the lights behind, where you have approximately 5 owls sitting. So those are the Vahanams of Vishnu and Lakshmi. Moving to the right, we have Shiva and Parvati represented as Ardhanarishwarar. On the left is Shiva's Vahanam, which is Nandi, and on the right is Parvati's Vahanam, which is the lion. Parvati represents courage, and hence she is sitting on the lion. It is also said that all of these Vahanams are very powerful. We will of course come to how powerful Garuda is in the second step. A small note about how powerful Nandi is: it is said that once upon a time, Ravana had visited Kailasham, and when Nandi came to see who he was, he told him, "Go tell your master that Ravana is here, you monkey." Nandi was insulted when Ravana called him a monkey, and he cursed him, "You will meet your fall at the hand of monkeys." And of course, we all know the story of Ramayana, which is now history. That is the first step. Now, moving on to the second step, we have a number of stories about Garuda as well. So the first story is that of Sri Krishna. So as you can see, we have Sri Krishna on a cradle and an artistic interpretation of Vasudeva, who looks a bit like Dumbledore. Now, most of us know the story of how Vasudeva was carrying Krishna and it was raining, and hence Adisesha came on top of them to act as an umbrella. Of course, when Vasudeva looked up, he saw Adisesha covering him, and he understood why there was no rain falling on him. It so happens that even Adisesha did not have any rain falling on him. So when he looked up, he actually saw that Garuda was flying on top, providing all of them shelter. So in a sense, this is a symbolic representation of Sri Krishna, carried by Vasudeva, protected by Adisesha, who are all in turn protected by Garuda on top. Such was Garuda's magnificence. Now, moving on a bit to the left, we can see Indra. This is Indra sitting on top of his vehicle, which is the white elephant, Airavatam. Now, once upon a time, Indra and Garuda had a fight over the nectar. So at this point, Garuda apparently won, and he carried away the nectar from Indra. This nectar here is represented as a pot of gold, which has some liquid dissolved into it. On the back is Garuda, who is represented in the form of a totem pole. Now, originally, the pot of gold and the nectar were placed on the ground. Some of our visitors decided to contribute by giving us a Lego car on which the pot of gold could be stored. Now, during this fight between Indra and Garuda, it seemed Indra launched his weapon called a Vajrastram, and nothing apparently happened to Garuda. At that point, Indra bowed to Garuda and asked him how strong he was. Garuda mentioned that a single feather of his can carry the weight of the entire world, and with Indra on top. That is why you see here a feather along with the earth as a representation of Garuda's strength. Moving on to the right, we see a Lego representation of Mahavishnu and Garuda. They are coming to save an elephant, which is the story of Gajendra Moksham. Gajendra was previously a king called Indradyumna, who was a great devotee of Sri Vishnu. When sage Agastya visited them, Indradyumna, instead of getting up from his oblations to Vishnu, merely nodded his head and asked sage Agastya to come have a seat. Agastya got angry and he exclaimed, "Since you are nodding your head as an elephant, may you be born an elephant." And thus Gajendra was born. In due course of time, once when Gajendra was getting some water to drink from a lake, a crocodile there, which was a Gandharva in disguise, got angry that he was being disturbed, and he went and caught Gajendra's foot. At that point, Gajendra screamed to Lord Vishnu for help, and Vishnu came immediately on Garuda to help and save both of them. Now you can see the representation of the crocodile as a Lego block, again a contribution of one of our visiting members. Moving on to the right, we see a couple of antelopes drawing a chariot. These two antelopes are drawing the chariot of the moon, Chandra Bhagavan. On the left, we see an equivalent of Surya Bhagavan, whose chariot is being drawn by 7 horses. It so happens that the charioteer of Surya was Garuda's brother. Moving on to the third step, we now have the Mushika Vahanam, which is carrying the elephant god Ganesha. On the right is an anglicized representation of Cupid or Manmada or Kamadeva, who is holding out a rose and whose Vahanam is the parrot. Moving on to the right still, we have Kartikeya or Muruga, who is the brother of Mahaganapati, who is riding a peacock. The peacock, of course, was a turkey which has been painted to look like a peacock. On the bottom are a few flowers and leaves, which were again a contribution of some of our audience members. And last but not the least, we have Lord Ayyappa, who is sitting on top of a tiger. Lord Ayyappa was famous for having vanquished Mahishi, the sister of Mahisha, who was vanquished by Mahishasura Mardini. Ayyappa went into the forest to get some milk for his mother, tiger's milk, and most of the devas then took the form of a tiger, and Ayyappa came back to the kingdom riding these tigers. Hence, his Vahanam is the tiger. So this is the theme of our entire Golu presentation, which is Vahana Vaibhavam. Of course, most of these have an artistic interpretation applied to these artifacts. We hope you enjoyed this. Please let us know what you think.